I spent this last week listening to Alex Jones, and let me just tell you, we should talk conspiracies on the show today. Hello to everybody again. Matt is here. And
I'm here.
And Matt is here, and we're going to talk to you about the movies.
Yes. And
probably not a lot of Alex Jones, but maybe a little.
No, I got a feeling we're going to go into some Alex Jones because
that is true.
That motherfucker crazy.
He is crazy, and we'll be talking a little conspiracy today.
The craziest thing about him, how often you're listening to him going, "Oh, that's some bullshit. Oh, I can't believe it." And then like a week later, you're like, "Oh my god, he was right."
That was real. He's a plant from the government. Who knows? We'll find out. We're talking a little Hollywood as well. The demise of Hollywood, because that's what we always like to talk about here.
Yeah, right.
That always ends up being it. And we'll look back at the Super Bowl trailers, see if there's anything on the horizon that we want to see.
Netflix won it.
As always. Well, of course, as always. So that's what we're here for today. Let's talk to the people, shall we?
Let's go. Movie trailers.
Movie trailers, indeed. We had another year of that thing they call the Super Bowl, and every time the Super Bowl happens, movie trailers happen.
So what was the worst part of the Super Bowl? The crappy trailers for the most part, or the Pats winning again?
Well, I enjoyed that for myself, and there's one reason alone. My favorite sports writer loves the New England Patriots, so I'd rather a happy sports writer than a sad sports
Who's your
writer.
favorite sports writer?
Bill Simmons.
Oh, I love Bill Simmons.
Yeah, he's the best. So if he's happy, then I'm happy. I don't really care.
I see him and Matthew.
I don't hate them as much as other people do, but
I don't hate them. I hate I hate what they represent.
Yeah, but that's just been the way that they've been painted. Atlanta pumped extra volume into their stadium to make it sound louder in there.
Right.
So that's what I'm saying.
But and it was theirs to lose. Like they went 3 quarters dominating the game.
All their fault.
Yeah, it kind of is.
So let's start with this trailer that everybody complained about the most. I think so. It's Ghost in the Shell. People say it's racist, and white people are taking over all the roles. Is this true?
What? Yeah, it is.
Okay.
I can't argue that.
All right. Well, that answers that question.
Well, I remember watching the original when it first was released here in the U.S. on video.
Not familiar with the original one at all.
It's anime.
Yeah.
Okay.
Which means that's why I'm not familiar with it at all.
If there's anything they can do to make it more accessible to audiences, because there's a good idea there, but even for me, it's a little obtuse, and I like obtuse movies. But there had to have been someone better than Scarlett Johansson. There had to be.
Maybe, but she is pretty.
But then again, it's also like putting Matt Damon in a movie about the Great Wall of China. It's like
with the monsters.
Yeah,
that was also a thing that happened.
Oh, fuck that.
Yeah, that's going to be disastrous. We talked about them last segment. The Fate of the Furious. First of all, I did not realize this is the 8th film in the series.
And they didn't go with Fate. 8.
They call Fate. That works. Fate.
But they didn't do F with an 8.
Yeah, but people would have kind of been confused by that. I'm going to be honest with you. People are retarded.
No.
In the nicest way possible, and I love you all. But
this is a franchise where you have Fast and the Furious.
Right.
No, The Fast and the Furious.
Yep.
Fast and the Furious, which are 2 different
Too Fast,
movies.
Too Furious.
And then you have The Fast and the Furious, Fast and Furious, Fast 5.
Right.
There's no sense to any of that.
I love that you know all these too.
Yes, I do.
The audience loves that as well. John Wick 2 actually comes out in like a week, I think.
Yes, and I just watched a couple of reviews for it today, and they say it's incredible.
Who is they? Do you trust they? Are you reading Peter Travers from Rolling Stone? Because if you read him and tell me anything, I'm going to punch you.
No. I get all my movie criticism from online.
He's online.
Oh, the talking head people in front of
I got
blank
you.
walls.
The people that are going to say great things about Pirates of the Caribbean or Transformers.
Did anyone see the 4th one? I know it made $1 billion.
Didn't know that there was a 4th one.
Did anybody outside of China watch that 4th one?
No, but that's what's most important right now. As again, that's something we get to talk about. Is China is taking
anyone
everything
who
over.
saw the 4th one? This is your fault.
I don't know. It's going to be That's what I got to say about that. Let's talk about some good ones though. Guardians of the Galaxy Part 2.
I'm confident the movie's going to be great, but the trailer's just kind of bleh. But then again, I didn't care for the trailer for the original one, and then I went to go see it, and 3 minutes in, I'm like, I want to watch this again already.
I can see that.
Yeah.
Baby Groot is always going to bring me into the theater.
Baby Groot's going to sell a lot of merchandise.
It is indeed when he's hitting the button.
Oh, they're going to put that on like every Disney hat when you go into the park. He's going to be everywhere for the next 8 years.
There may or may not be a bobblehead doll of Baby Groot at my house.
I wouldn't doubt it. I have a bobblehead Baby Groot. I really do.
And I think another one that's going to be good, but who knows? Trailer is looking really good. Ooh, we're blacking out in here. Logan, the last film in the Wolverine series.
Yeah, this is what, like the 9th time he's played Logan?
Good Lord, is it?
Yeah, maybe more.
I mean, that's got to be a record, right? Nobody else has played a superhero for that long.
I don't know if anyone else has played a character that long. Maybe Robert Englund is Freddy.
All right, if you want to stretch it.
But he's not a main character.
Right.
He's the antagonist and everything. I hope that it's as good as the last one, but I hope it's more memorable.
Are they going to take themselves too seriously?
Well, of course, because that's what comic movies do now.
That is true.
That don't have.
Thanks, Zach.
No, you can thank Christopher Nolan for that.
All right, well, that's fair enough. And then hopefully the best of the best.
But no, you skipped over Transformers, sir.
No, we lumped that in with Pirates of the Caribbean.
Transformers had like 6 different aspect ratios in that trailer. I don't know what the hell's going on with that.
I did not notice that at all. It is going to, no, I'm out on that. But the one that looks the best, I think, is not from a studio, but it's from Netflix.
Yes.
Stranger Things Part 2.
I'm upset myself that I didn't realize it was the Stranger Things promo the second they put up the 40-year-old waffle.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I did. We all kind of looked around at each other and was like, what's going on?
Oh, the second it went static, I'm like, okay, I get it.
I see what you did there, you sons of bitches.
This looks great. And because it looks so good, I'm actually rewatching the new one. And it has kind of a vibe like the Mist.
Yes.
And I'm down with that because The Mist is one of my favorite horror movies.
And it seems to be that they're going to get to play with some monsters, and that's going to be a lot of fun. You know, the first season was building to that, but they didn't have the budget, obviously. Netflix didn't even expect it to be, the top-tier show. Like, it was a second-tier show that Netflix put together.
So it looks like the Upside Down is tearing into our world.
Boy, don't you know it. Yeah. That is so true. It's almost like it's happening in real life. To look back over the history of cinema, you see a theme from the decades.
That your list is silly that you made, I see.
My list is always silly, and that's how it's going to be. We want to talk. I want to talk to you a little bit about what kind of cinema represents each decade. The last, let's go with 6 decades.
Okay, so we're going to skip over some of the more important ones, the formation of cinema as an art form.
Yeah, nobody cares about those.
You're just going to ignore Méliès, right?
Yes. Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
And that one with the telescope and the moon in the eye.
Oh, yeah, Trip to the Moon.
Yeah, we're going to skip all of Chaplin's. We're going to skip Birth of a Nation.
The new one?
No, the old one.
Oh.
We can talk about the new one. But I don't think it's going to be indicative of any decade.
No, I'll say this. As big of a deal as Birth of a Nation has been over the past year, a year from now, when someone says Birth of a Nation, they're just going to go right back.
1919 one, right. So let's go back. We can go back to the 50s. I think we can start there.
That one's tough. That's probably
That's why mine is empty.
I know. That's probably the decade I know the least about because I think we might need to come up with a metric for judging these. Right?
Okay, well, that's fair enough. The people need some lines to understand what we're thinking here.
Okay, so what was big in the 50s? You had musicals that were huge.
Right.
You had schlocky horror movies, like more of sci-fi horror.
Okay.
Right. And then you had the big epics. The remake of Ten Commandments.
Fair enough. I think you skipped political commentary films, but we'll get there.
Yes.
Because I can think of two right off the bat. Ace in the Hole for me. I mean, that may not be all of the 50s, but I think that's one of the first 50s films that I certainly think of. And a movie that we'll talk about later, Facing the Crowd.
Oh, man.
Those are both
we mentioned that
indicative.
in an earlier one, too. Yeah,
we'll talk about it again.
It's one of the best. But even something like... I don't know. Let's go with a sci-fi movie, Day the Earth Stood Still.
Okay.
Because that's also very politically charged.
The Keanu Reeves one, right?
Fuck you. No. The original.
Yes, I recall.
Because, I mean, it's basically about the Cold War and nuclear annihilation.
Right.
And it's kind of like a very long Twilight Zone episode. But I think in the tug of war between television and movies, I think... one of the reasons it might be harder to come up with a movie that best encapsulates a decade for the 50s would be that was kind of like that was the golden era of television.
Right.
So, I think a lot of the focus might have been on like, hey, I love Lucy, Jack Benny, things like that.
I got you. So there was a dip in cinema at the time, not unlike what we're experiencing now.
Exactly. Hey, wow, things run in a cycle.
It's amazing how we as humans do that.
So it rhymes.
Right. All right, so
that was my Lucas impression.
That was very nice.
Thank you.
That was very classic. Let's talk about the 60s now. There's so many different ways of the 60s you can go.
Because it starts out with like the Cleopatras, the big epics.
Right.
And
we were happy and things were good early in the 60s.
And then Kennedy got shot.
And then Kennedy got shot.
Vietnam.
And then everybody got shot.
Right. Thanks for sucking the air out of that one. But no, because then you had the youth movement and people
those hippies, those dirty hippies.
Right, and you had two things happening. One, younger people in the studio system saying, or the dying students at the time, realizing, hey, these people have a voice. Let's make something for them. And then very quickly going, hey, let's exploit their money.
Yes.
But Easy Rider,
that might be one that's on the top of many people's list because of. I think that there's a juxtaposition of both sides of the 60s in that film.
Yes. And then Bonnie and Clyde, like that you have written down, that you can't argue with that one. But then, again, and you know me in sci-fi, you go to something like, Planet of the Apes in 68, which is a fun little movie for kids. It's a nice action-adventure movie. It's a nice sci-fi movie, and then has a whole lot to say about race, about political climate, about everything.
Right.
Even a little bit of an environmental alarmist film, too, which was very unusual at the time.
Yeah, that was certainly ahead of its time.
But, man, Bonnie and Clyde.
The violence that you began to see in cinema at the time that they were allowed to show, and the artists being able... absolutely.
I mean, they always had violence, but there was a difference between, a guy getting shot in a Western,
right,
and then the end of Bonnie and Clyde.
Right. There was no visual early in the days, but then when they get shot full of thousands of bullets, then you definitely see it, and it's a good times. So the 70s, it's definitely an era for me that I don't care about at all.
Liar.
So
liar.
All the movies of the 70s that I care about don't have anything with the zeitgeist, but I can say, I unequivocally, it's either going to be Star Wars or Jaws. Like, there's just no two ways about that in the 70s.
Oh man, it's tough because those really represented the changing of the guard, and those created the business that we're seeing die out.
What
now.
we still,
right. So 50 years it created, but that's a tough one because both are considered classics. Both are kind of schlocky movies at their core.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know, which one would you go with, Jaws or Star Wars? That's really tough.
Jaws for me, but Star Wars. Star Wars means nothing to me.
I'm gonna go with Jaws for one reason. As much as I love Star Wars and I love it a lot, the original, kind of reminds me of Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves in a way, where pretty decent movie, but the soundtrack is so fucking good. It just elevates the entire thing. And Star Wars with any other soundtrack would not be remembered. Jaws with another soundtrack, I think, would still have caught on a little bit. Not nearly as much as it did because, the theme is the theme. But I think I'd have to go with Jaws just because it's a better made.
There you go. Okay, so let's see if we can blow through these last ones since they are recent.
Bullshit.
Look, for me, in the 80s, if you think of 80s...
No, you're wrong on both of those.
That are quintessential 80s films.
You're wrong on both of those.
Tron encapsulates every visual aspect of...
Turn off.
It's off, but it just buzzed. For me, it's all the visual of the 80s.
No.
It's all the sci-fi that wasn't quite there yet of the 80s.
No.
And the terrible storytelling of the 80s.
No, I'm going to go with one that was made right smack dab in the middle of the 80s.
Yes.
Is still considered one of the best movies, and actually I think is the best trilogy ever made. Back to the Future.
Okay.
Back to the Future is the most 80s movie.
I take it back. Back to the Future it is. And the 90s?
Pulp Fiction. You're right on
that. For us, I think overall, though, maybe Jurassic Park still has an impact on...
I think Jurassic Park transcends its time. Because, except for the, hey, interactive CD-ROM, except for that one moment, you watch it now and it doesn't seem dated.
There's nothing that changed.
And it's over 20 years old.
Yeah.
But Pulp Fiction was kind of ushering in the new era of, hey, we're the auteur independent filmmaker, and it gave us Tarantino, and it kind of became the coolest movie ever made. So I'm gonna agree with you.
Pulp Fiction it is. And then the 2000s. I think that this is important that everybody know that Matt just read what I wrote for the 2000s, and I think there's no way around it. Fast and Furious is the 2000s. It's all the decadence of the 2000s.
No.
It's all the ridiculousness of the 2000s. It's Paul Walker. It's Vin Diesel.
That's not even the best movie in the franchise that came out in the 2000s. I would go, if you're wanting to talk about the movies that came out between 2000 and 2009.
Yes.
In that franchise alone, the second and third are both better than the first
Okay,
one.
but give me the franchise. How about can I have the franchise on that?
Oh, man. Yeah, you know what? I don't think it's definitely not the best movie, but probably encapsulates that, like, surge, the energy drink to the extreme kind of early 2000s bullshit that I hate.
So there you go.
Yeah.
And you didn't have a better one. So
oh, my God. We could have done 3 episodes. It is dark. We have the lights off. There's a nice red glow in here because we wanted Eerie to talk about conspiracies.
The greatest, the most wonderful, the thing that's probably wasted most of my time in my life is conspiracies. I'm going to be honest with you.
Oh, same here.
And
the YouTube rabbit hole has been the worst thing for the last 10 years.
Absolutely. And there's nothing greater than conspiracy movies.
Got a question. What was the first YouTube-based conspiracy theory movie that you watched? I remember mine.
Loose Change, maybe?
Oh!
Maybe Loose
Final
Change.
Cut? Loose Change Final Cut?
Yeah, I believe so. I believe that was there. Unless it was an Alex Jones movie.
Speaking of Alex Jones.
Yeah, we can just jump right on into the deep end with that crazy fellow. I can't imagine how many of these movies he thinks are for reals.
I told you that I met him. Did I talk about it on the show last time?
I think that you did a little bit.
Yeah.
He probably thinks Eagle Eye is a real thing.
Okay. A conspiracy movie that came out, I think it was 1998, that I thought was ridiculous and stupid and terrible, and now I love it when it's on. And I just forgot the name of the fucking movie.
Unbelievable. Are you going to say Enemy of the State?
Yes, I am. I was going to say Enemy of the State.
Yes, indeed, sir. That is one of the conspiracy theory films that have held up over the time.
If anything, it seems almost too plausible.
Right.
Because it's such a mundane thing that they're after. It's not like, we have to stop the lizard people.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, shit, this guy has a tape because he accidentally filmed some fucking ducks and he saw me kill a guy.
Yep.
It's like, it's such a mundane thing.
It's great that they have Gene Hackman in there. Certainly, I think an evolution of the character that Gene Hackman played in the conversation.
Yes.
I think it has a lot of that,
that wasn't an
vibe to it.
Casting him.
Not at all. You wouldn't think so. You have foil involved. You always got to have some good foil involved in a conspiracy movie, whether it be on a head or hiding some kind of knowledge. And Will Smith was really great in that.
There's one of my favorite conspiracy theory movies that kind of takes all conspiracies and ties them together. Is a little movie that no one's ever heard of called Lunopolis.
Oh, that's not even on my list.
No, it used to be on Netflix, and I watched it like 3 times the first day I saw it. I found it by accident, and I watched it, and I loved it. The only problem with the movie is that 3 times in the movie, people take guns out, and it was kind of like a fake documentary. These guys get a tape, and they're trying to figure out what it meant. Right? Okay. And there are these bad guys that every time they take out a gun, it's a tiny little independent movie done by some young guys, I think in Louisiana. And every time they take out a gun, it looks like a student film. With like guys in the black suits, the black ties, and they take out a gun. And it looks stupid. You cut those parts out of the movie, and it's amazing. And there's kind of like the movie JFK. How when he finally sits down and talks to Donald Sutherland, how he kind of basically talks for half an hour and makes everything make sense. That's what happens at one point in this movie. They talk to this guy, and it basically takes like Atlantis, time travel, UFOs, everything, and puts them into a blender, and they connect them and make them make sense in this really fucked up shake that they're making.
That sounds delicious.
It's great. It's a great little movie. It's really hard to find. That's unfortunate.
No, it is a bummer. Yeah. I've watched this movie probably 5 times in the last year. Something I'm working on, so it is kind of part of it. But the Parallax View. That is a classic. Somebody gets killed, and maybe it was assassination, and then the truth brings you to places that you don't want to be. That beautiful glowing hair of, what's his name, was magical in this film. Warren Beatty. He was looking at his pretty best. But it definitely had a feel of the Robert Kennedy assassination. Yeah. A big party, somebody gets killed, maybe some more people are involved, and it kind of de-evolves from there.
I mean, Parallax View, what was that, early 70s, 72, 73?
Yeah, I believe so.
Yeah, so it wasn't too long after.
Not at all. There was no lady in a polka dot dress in it. But pretty much that was kind of the thing. And if you partner that, you want to do a double feature of movies from that time. 3 Days of the Condor is the other one together, because that ending, just the idea that even if you tell the media, what does it matter? We control the media. And I think that's been prescient then, and it's certainly prescient now. Mm-hmm. And just the hopelessness. And I think that a lot of times with conspiracy theories, it does become a hopelessness.
That's actually the one issue I have with They Live. Because They Live is one of my favorite movies. Mm-hmm. And at its heart, it's basically a conspiracy. But at the end, all he does is he shoots the TV with this tiny little gun, or shoots the dish with a tiny little gun, and everybody knows that there's a conspiracy. And it seems like a little too convenient. And yeah, with conspiracy movies, I kind of like a little darker, a little more bleak.
Definitely, those two are as bleak as they can get. I mean, the Parallax View, when you find out that no, nothing happened. We don't know what you're talking about. That guy never, and be done with it. Sweep it under the table. That's certainly been the actions, maybe not, of many government situations that have happened over the years, whether it be JFK or whether it be 9/11 or whether it be that assassination thing at Bowling Green, the massacre.
Right. Now, what do you think about Stanley Kubrick putting like the Room 237 theory? That he put all these hints that he faked the moon landing into Shining.
I don't believe that. I am fascinated by it, but I don't believe it at all. It was a great documentary. They definitely had me hooked on it for an hour and a half. Now, did he fake the moon landing? I mean, there's still possibilities. Did he shoot it and maybe they went anyhow? Yes, that could also happen as well.
There was a guy who actually disproved the theory that he shot it by using it wasn't anything grandiose. It was basically saying, okay, in order to make it look like you're moving at slow motion, you got to shoot twice the frames. So you're looking at 48 frames a second, average mag, you're going to get 5 minutes maybe. Mm-hmm. It's like, but what most people don't know is when they hit the moon, right? When they landed, they had a signal going for hours, an uninterrupted signal going for hours. It's like, it's impossible to do it just off of that. Like, oh, thanks. Ruined that for me.
Killed that one for me. I learned while we were doing, while I was doing research for the show today, that the 80s spent a lot of time with CIA cocaine drug rings, whether it be Above the Law with Steven Seagal or many of the other Steven Seagal films as well. What was one of the other? Just a random. Air America also had a Patsy.
My old professor
character
edited that movie.
Oh, that is classic cinema. I had to look that up to remember what it was. It'd been a while since I'd actually seen it.
Well, I think one of the reasons why is because that shit was actually happening back
then. Right. Well, sure. Ollie North and all.
Well, yeah. Well, there's this documentary about the crack epidemic in the late 80s, early 90s. And this ex-DEA agent is being interviewed. And he said, first of all, how do you think they got into the country? The time President Bush has a lot of interest in offshore oil drilling. So they'd run it there because they know no one's going to be watching because he owns it.
All right.
He said, and you're old enough to remember.
Hey, now. Hey. I'm only 23.
Do you remember when he would go on air on Friday nights and be like, there's a new epidemic. It's called crack. It's easy to get.
Mm-hmm.
Gets you really high, and it's super cheap, and we got to stop it.
And nobody knew where to get some.
No,
but
really that's the thing. What did you just hear? Wait, there's a drug that's really cheap, gets me high, and is super easy to find?
Sign me up.
It was basically him lining his pockets. That's what this DEA agent said.
I mean, look, things got to be paid for some way or another. And since the drug trade is still 2 to 3% of the GDP every year, I mean that's now. I mean, what was it back then? I can't even imagine. We don't have to talk about Eagle Eye. I brought that one up earlier. Oh, the other one that I was kind of found fascinating was a Double Take. It also had a cartel money laundering ring involved. Did you remember that? What's the conspiracy in The Last Boy Scout? Do you remember?
No, I don't. I have not seen that movie since it came out on VHS the first week.
I could not remember either, but I did once I read this. I go, oh, yeah, that's true. They were trying to assassinate a senator because he was trying to block gambling, sports gambling.
That's right.
And they had to shut that down.
All they had to do was wait for...
I know, right. If they would have just done it a few years later. Marathon Man, are you a fan of that movie at all?
I've seen half of it.
Okay, so I'll say not so much.
No, it's just I started a lot of movies back in college that I just got...
Yeah. We're having all kinds of activities in here today, guys. Yeah, I guess you don't like running. That's probably what the problem was. It was a kind of a weird thing. Also, the dentist part of Marathon Man really turned me off. I don't like things in my teeth.
Now, did you see Valkyrie?
I did. Why did they do it in English? I'll never know. But
well, it's the same reason people do all of Shakespeare's plays in English, even though they take place in like Rome. You know?
Well, sure, but it was still terrible.
I actually don't think Valkyrie was that terrible. One thing that I did like about it was, they made a point when they're planning out the attack on Hitler. Say we have to take out Hitler and Himmler, because Himmler is kind of the guy who's running things. And if you take out just Hitler, Himmler's still there, and they're going to find a way of spinning this.
Mm-hmm.
And you see Hitler an awful lot up until the moment of the explosion.
Right.
And from that point on, you only hear about it on the radio, with them saying the Fuhrer's fine.
Right.
Kind of positing that maybe they did succeed,
maybe he wasn't
but
fine.
Himmler was okay. And it's like that those are the kind of conspiracy movies I like, where it makes you think about a historical event from a different perspective.
I dig that. I definitely dig that. All 7 Days in May is something that we could have talked about with Dr. Strangelove, because they're along the same lines, just a different take on it. Being able to have a coup that takes over the United States. I always remember those
business plot from
the 1930s. I know, right? I'll always remember those films as being indicative of kids in schools climbing underneath their desks to protect themselves from a nuclear fallout. I've never really understood what the purpose on that was. Obviously, besides to pretend like something was going to happen.
It's to, in case shit hits
placate
the fan.
the children.
Yeah, it's just like Fight Club.
Hey, we don't talk about that. Not at all. Right. Not here, sir. Not here. Do you consider The Firm a conspiracy film?
Yeah.
I think you got to, right?
Yeah. Because there are different types of conspiracies. There are the more realistic conspiracies that have to do with people gaining power and wealth in a company.
Right.
Or screwing a guy over, kind of like Trading Places. Trading Places is a conspiracy movie.
That is true.
But then you have, the X-Files, where it's,
Or Executive Action. That was a movie I watched a few months ago I told you about. That was literally if the JFK plot on how the conspiracy theories people think that it happened, that was the movie. And they did it, I don't know, maybe 7 years after the shooting, 7 or 8 years, something like that. That was surreal. Like, I don't understand. I watched Hogan's Heroes, so I understand that entertainment at the time was different for whatever reason.
It's catharsis. It's someone being funny, the day that their parent dies.
Executive Action was not funny in any way, shape, or form, my friend.
That's not the point that I was making.
I know. But it is always fascinating to me to kind of see how even a movie like Conspiracy Theory with Mel Gibson, not necessarily the things that we're able to get away with, but I think that we're naive to think that if you do certain things, that the studio's not going to hear about it. If you're doing it through the studio system, they have connections to politicians, and politicians will share their
well, just look at what happened with
objections on it.
Citizen Kane. When he found out that not only was the movie about him, but they were using Rosebud,
mm-hmm.
and you know what that is from, right?
Yes.
Okay, William Randolph Hearst. In the movie Rosebud, it's the symbol of his lost youth. It's the sled, right?
Mm.
But in reality, his mistress, it's what he called her clit, was Rosebud.
Oh, that's adorable.
And that's why he wrote it in there as like a fuck you to William Randolph Hearst. When he found out about that, he got incredibly pissed. Took all of the heads of the studios and said, if you release this, every single one of my papers is going to publish your real last name. At the time, anti-Semitism was kind of high in this country.
Right, a little bit.
Right. So they wanted to avoid that. And it was a battle just to get that movie released because they were taking on William Randolph Hearst.
And it still puts me to sleep to this day.
What?
I know. What are you going to do? It's another
then watch
story
RKO 281 because that's a good movie about the making. Liv Shriver's in it.
Now I'm back out again. You had me, and then you pulled
He's
back
so
up.
good.
I'm going to go watch Murdered 1600,
Ugh.
and then I'm going to be all right.
Ugh.
Hey.
Ugh.
I watched that movie in slow-mo because they killed that girl on the desk, and for a frame or two, her dress is a little high. Anyways, Wesley Snipes, go check it out, or don't. It's okay. I watched it on videotape. So that's conspiracies. We could talk about these for years and years and years. I mean, we didn't even talk about Mr. Smith Goes to Washington.
I don't even know if I call that a conspiracy.
Maybe not. Michael Clayton,
real quick,
The Insider. Go for it.
What is your favorite conspiracy? Not movie, just conspiracy in general. One that you actually kind of believe.
Oh, man, one that I actually kind of believe still. That's tough, man. I've deep dove into conspiracies over the years and found out a lot of things.
Or what's one that if you see something on it, you're like, well, okay, I've got to study this.
Oh, man. Gosh, there hasn't been any new stuff on Zodiac recently, but I'm always fascinated by that. JonBenet Ramsey as well, since that's an open case.
Oh, did you watch the documentary?
Uh-huh.
That was mad.
And then OJ. I mean, I can't not read OJ stuff.
That's so.
His son did it. His son did it. How about you?
The Dulce base, underground base in New Mexico.
Okay.
Little things like there was an episode on this show called UFO Hunters, where they were interviewing a state trooper, and he had pictures of these cows and something he actually took out.
Oh,
of
yes.
their uteruses.
I'm familiar
and then they
with
were
this.
canceled.
Yes.
Like right after the show was aired.
Indeed,
Little
sir.
things like that. Dulce base, aliens especially, just because I've always been fascinated by aliens. And then when I was 12, we had these giant windows in the dining room, and my mom and I were eating pizza one day, and it was very late, 9, 10 o'clock at night. My sister was asleep. And we were talking, and we kept noticing these 4 lights just hanging outside. And finally went outside, and we watched it for 10 straight minutes, and they were just there, these 4 lights. And then just back and forth, gone. Right? And we're like, whoa, what the fuck? Cut to 2 days later, unmarked black helicopters were buzzing our neighborhood, maybe 150 feet. Like, I could have easily thrown a baseball and hit these things. And just buzzing for hours.
I don't know if you can throw a baseball 150 feet. I'm gonna challenge that.
That's what I'm saying. At most 150 feet. Like, these things were fucking loud, and they were right around the level that thing was.
I don't think you could make it from the pitcher's mound to the catcher's mitt. I'm gonna call you on it right now.
Oh,
let's go outside right now.
That's 60 feet. I could do 60 feet.
It's 60 feet 6 inches, sir. So aliens are real, and that's the answer.
By the numbers, yes, they Once again, you've proven you can't count.
Oh, the people know that. The people know that indeed. Let's talk about Vanity Fair. They gave us a little article this week entitled, Why Hollywood as We Know It is Already Over.
Subtitle, articles I like to send Matt to depress him all week.
Doom and gloom indeed. Doom and gloom. But we'll find out that maybe this isn't such a bad thing. Maybe this is just the evolution of things, just as everything goes. and comes, then we're all good. So, yeah, God, there's so many points that they hit. I want to get to several of these. One highlight that we've talked about before, let's go ahead and get this one out of the way. We'll kind of work our way down from there, is the experience of going to the movies. I've read articles for the last 20 years saying people are not going to go to the movies anymore.
Yeah, it's funny that you mentioned that because movie attendance is at a 19-year low, and 7 of the top 20 movies last year were all Disney movies. If Disney were to pull out of the game tomorrow, the industry would collapse.
And why is that? Is it because people aren't going, or is it because they're making bad movies?
Little from column A, little from column B. Before the multiplex, back in the late 70s, early 80s,
right?
You had these big movie houses, big screens. They cared about projection. Okay. Then through the late 80s, early 90s, there was the explosion of, hey, we got 12 screens. We got 18. Yeah, motherfucker, we got 30 screens. But here's the thing. Screens went from, 40, 50 feet in size, 20, sometimes less than 20. I have a 5-foot television at my house. 5 feet. And it is like 9 feet to my couch. Okay. I have gone to see movies where I'm sitting in the back because the person wants to sit in the back. And it is a smaller experience in these multiplexes than I would experience at home.
There are so many things about that I'm going to disagree with now.
I'm not done. I'm not done.
Go for it.
Okay. So let's take a look at there is a chain of theaters that kind of prides themselves on being we're hip, we're cool, we show movies you want to see, which is great. We'll show older movies. But every time I've been, the projection's lousy. Their sound is mediocre. And it costs me and my family $120 to go. See a movie that I have at home in HD, and their projection was so dark, I couldn't make anything out. It was like half opacity. So why on earth would I spend that when I could say, hey, guys, we're going to order food from wherever the hell you want, and we're going to have a nice evening at home with our giant TV with impeccable screen. Now, I'm not saying that that's the way it is across the board. When a new Star Wars movie comes out, for example, I want to see it in the biggest theater, the biggest screen, the loudest sound. I want that experience. Comedies are better in a full theater. But if you've ever seen a comedy with like no one else in the theater, you know how painful it can be.
Or glorious.
That's true. I've seen all 3 Jackass movies in the theater, and the last 2 I was the only one in them, and I still laugh like an idiot.
Here's a couple of things. One, your first problem was you had a family. That really kind of cancels you out from any real discussion about going to the movie theater.
Right.
So that's straight off the top. Number 2, as I argue before and I'll argue again and I'll argue to the end of time, there's no place else that you can go on a date with another human being where you can sit there in the dark for an hour and a half and not talk to them, but still be with them. That is such an underrated quality about films. You can't do that in any other place.
You know what the funny thing is? To counter that, that's actually one of the reasons why when my wife and I have a night without the kids, we don't go out to see a movie.
Right.
Because, for us...
You're not interacting.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So we'd much rather go home, and mess around, and watch whatever we want.
Right.
Than go to a theater and watch something that might not be any good. And again, spend $20 a ticket now.
Sure. I mean, I go to Valley View, so I pay $5, but I hear you.
Right. But I mean, when I lived in LA, I went to the ArcLight. Their smallest screen is 60 feet. And the front seat is so far back, that screen could fall and it wouldn't hit you. They do exhibition correctly. Problem is, most people don't. And most people really don't know the difference because they haven't been exposed to the best. And unfortunately, I went to a school where my classroom was where 5.1 and THX were invented. Second most advanced theater in the world. And that's where I had my classes every day. So when I saw 2001, they had a brand new print on 70 millimeter, and I was front row center on a 60-foot screen. When it cut to that close-up of the eye when he was going through the tunnel, I thought I could see through time. unfortunately, most people are going to see it on a 20-foot screen.
That's true.
And I think if they stopped with the gimmicks, because for a while 3D worked, but then that waned, and then the food thing, everyone has food and drinks now. That's kind of working. And now they're starting, most theaters, since it's digital, they're able to do cheap movies where it's like, hey, we don't have to rent a print anymore. We can just download it. Hey, let's do an evening where we show a classic 80s movie. And we'll get these millennials back, right? That's great. But we can do all of that at home. And again, with a picture that's usually better than what they're showing. If they went back to large theaters, large screens, proper presentation, I think you'd see people still go. It's not our fault. Because again, if you go sit at the back of a multiplex, it's worse than watching it on your iPad.
I don't remember the last time I was in the back seat of a movie theater because I'm not a pervert. But all your other points are valid. We'll allow them. But just remember, people, go to the movie theater because you can also mess around in there. Number two, the thing that they talk about, which I think that I certainly don't ever think about, but it's so true and so accurate, and you'll be able to talk a little bit more in depth about it, that is unions. The power of the union in Hollywood has been such a iron claw grip, not that there's necessarily anything wrong with a union, but there are things like, for example, in this article, a screenwriter was on set one day. The actor had a raindrop on their shoulder. He flicked it off, and a union representative came over and berated him because that was her job.
Right. And I can see both sides of the argument here. It is her job. And in order to get into the union, it's not an easy thing.
No, I don't imagine so.
It's very difficult. But once you're in there, you're kind of protected. And that's nice. However, I'm going to quote The Simpsons again, where before Burns' father was running an atom smashing plant at the turn of the century. And he finds 5 atoms in this guy's pocket and takes them away. And he goes, one day we're going to unionize and we're going to be strong. And then we're going to, what does he say? We're going to get drunk with power. And, it's that kind of thing. It's right. And this is every labor union. They are a good thing at their heart. But that doesn't mean they don't do bad things.
But Jimmy Hoffa always ends up at the top.
Right. No, it's one of those things that has kept people employed in LA, but driven out everybody else. But then again, it's not like other people don't have unions. When we sent, for my show, we sent somebody up to Toronto to interview like some people from Flash and Supergirl. We couldn't send one of our camera people. We had to, since
local
it was a production up there, we had to get them. And sometimes it's cost prohibitive. And when there is a union strike, like in the 2007 writer's strike, I had friends that were out of work for almost a year. And the ones who weren't were working on crappy reality TV.
Right.
So it's a mixed blessing. But for anyone who thinks that things aren't going to change because unions have gotten too difficult to work with, they're naive.
Yeah, I talked a little bit about Uber and how they've kind of dealt with the unions and, being able to work in any place that you want to, I think is, people will keep going to places that they don't have to deal with certain things if it's cost prohibitive. And, for example, in Dallas, I can't imagine there's a lot of union activity that regulates anything in film.
No, but there are a lot of SAG and AFTRA eligible people.
That's true.
And if you've worked with somebody enough or they're doing a big enough job, their representation here will ask for SAG rates. But that doesn't mean they're going to get them.
The technology aspect of things, whether it be the 3D visual aspects, that was one of the things that you'll be able to in the future, watch a movie in 3D with your friends, even if they're not in the room. Now, you better design something that's better than the goggles now.
Yeah.
But if that is the case and they're able to advance it, that's going to be great. I think that's a good adventure. But the thing that scares me as a writer, not scares me, but it is kind of a little creepy, is the talk about being able to use computers to write screenplays. Shoving all that data, the thousands of screenplays, the greatest screenplays, putting all together and letting the computer figure out, oh, hey, this is the best avenue to write a good screenplay.
I think that before we have something that is going to be 100% commercially viable and something that isn't a wrote by the numbers kind of, Fast and the Furious 12.
Like they did in the 80s, okay.
Right. I think we're going to have to get to the point to where AI is indistinguishable from people because there has to be a certain level of creativity, right?
God, you'd hope so.
Well, I mean, okay, think about, again, 1980s. Imagine you're in an office, you're running a TV studio, and this guy comes in and says, hey, I got the greatest idea for a show. There's a cop, and he gets shot in the face, and some people take him, and they give him plastic surgery, and then they give him a car that can talk and jump over shit, and it's bulletproof, and he fights crime. They're like, oh, get the fuck out of here.
Oh, I've already given you my money. I was ready to go.
And ran for 4 seasons, and they've rebooted it like 6 times.
Right.
It is a 40-year-old franchise almost. That is the kind of nonsense that only the human brain and cocaine together
that
can
is so
come
very
up
true.
with, right? And I'm not saying that we're not going to get to the point to where it can't be generated. That's going to happen. But at that point, we're going to have bigger problems to worry about, and that is, thinking computers. And the last time someone created that intelligent of an artificial intelligence,
right.
It learned Nazi propaganda in a day. It happened last year. So
that's not creepy at all.
No, it's not.
To be able to cover the spectrum, actors are losing out on so many jobs now because of the green screen, because of the superhero stuff, because of the other things. They're not being written. The Manchesters by the Sea are getting less and less for, an actor even to be able to use their real face. It's not computer generated. There's not something going on with that, and
it's still performance. They still require performance, and you require sometimes it'll be just performance capture for the body, sometimes for the face as well. And then you have the animator in there as well. So you're basically taking multiple performances and putting them together.
Right.
It's just going to happen where we stop separating digital from live performance. The fact that Andy Serkis hasn't won an Oscar at this point is kind of ridiculous because he's done more with his face than a lot of actors have done, on screen in 20 years.
Right.
It's just it's going to be one of those things that it's going to seem like it happens overnight once it's finally accepted, but it's been a while. Jar Jar.
I mean,
hate him.
Just this year, Carrie Fisher.
Right, but I mean, Jar Jar was 18 years ago. 18 years we've been looking at digital characters. That's a long time. That's a long time in the history of film. That's like a sixth of the whole history of film.
Right.
And Gollum was 15 years ago. This isn't overnight. But when it finally happens, they're probably going to give Serkis a Lifetime Achievement Award. Probably never win an Oscar for it, unfortunately. But he's going to be seen as the pioneer of it. And it's just going to be another form of performance. And I honestly think that the big part of the acceptance of that is video games. Because you had Kevin Spacey lent his to Call of Duty a couple years ago.
Right.
And it's just going to be one of those things that people get used to. We're still in the Uncanny Valley territory right now. But if anything, it's going to give more opportunities for a lot of actors, I think. Because they're always going to need somebody to play, the orc,
All right. And I think the lesson is evolve or die. Music industry has learned that. All the other industries, it's time. No matter how
music industry is
big,
still fighting it.
Yeah, well, that's true. But no matter how big the studio heads think they are, and the studios have been forever, and they are part of the institution of America, as it were, they're going to go away. And that's just the way that it is. That's because everything does.
All good things.
And some bad, too. So, let's talk about a fascinating thing. I think that it's going to begin to influence movies over the next 4 years anyhow, and it's how politics and films affect each other, change each other, and draw a new narrative for the American people for the next 4 years. If nobody's heard, we do have a new president.
Wait, what now?
His name is Donald J. Trump.
Don't you mean Steve Bannon?
That is true. His face on the cover of Time magazine this week is pretty horrific.
It is Steve, right?
Yes, that is correct. It doesn't matter what you call him, just as long as you call him Satan.
Herr Bannon?
So this is not new. We always have crazy people in charge of America. And as such, we always have films that respond to those times. Other than Jimmy Carter, but he also believed that aliens were real. So what are you going to do? It's neither good nor bad.
Says the man who's wearing an I want to believe UFO shirt.
I want to believe anything anymore. I don't know what facts are. Does 2 plus 2 still equal 7?
Never did.
Oh.
You might also be illiterate.
Well, our new Secretary of Education will teach us about that.
I just got set up for that joke.
You did indeed, sir. Let's start with your movie, a movie that you said, hey, have you ever seen this week? Bob Roberts.
Oh, man. Did you watch it?
I have not seen it yet. It's on my list.
Okay. I actually found this from The Simpsons. They have an episode called Sideshow Bob Roberts.
Oh, okay.
Where he runs for political office. Now, Bob Roberts is a mockumentary about this super conservative right-wing guy.
Tim Roberts stars.
Yes.
Robbins, excuse me.
Yes. Running for office. And I can't talk about it too much because it'll give away everything that happens. And
there you go. But
it's too good. But it hits so close to home with this election that it's weird that it was made 30 years ago.
And if we want to speak about movies that are so very old, yet again, the circle of time comes back around. It's Facing the Crowd.
Here's the difference with Facing the Crowd, though. When everyone heard him say that they are ignorant, right? At the end, they immediately turned on him, and he lost everything as it was happening. The guy who's in the Oval Office right now.
Yeah, how did that work out when that was found out about him?
He got more popular.
He just kept going.
We have him on tape saying that he tried to fuck a married woman, and he couldn't, but he tried. He didn't care.
Right.
And that being famous means you can grab women by the pussy. And his supporters say, I'd rather be grabbed by my pussy than ruled by one.
That's true.
So obviously there's something really, really off right now because, again, that should have kicked him out of the running immediately. And it happened almost daily for a year.
Constantly. It was a great news cycle for the politicking. I think the CNNs of the world really love that.
Everybody does, not just CNN.
One of the things about Facing the Crowd that I was fascinated by that you take, we talked about decades earlier, and to be able to see that through the lens of TV becoming a part of politics, being able to see your politician, being able to experience them in that way, I think that was definitely a precursor to, say, the JFK and Nixon debates.
Yes.
Where Nixon is just sweating on TV because he's not adept at being able to do that yet.
And Facing the Crowd was, 57?
Yeah, so it was several years before that. And so, you just see on how things evolved, just visually, for the voting public to be able to see somebody.
Yeah, their ability to kind of immediately understand what that new medium could do for a candidate and how it could be taken advantage of and manipulated is kind of brilliant.
It is, and it's still used to this day and will always continue to be used.
I see you have Idiocracy written down there.
Yeah, that's good. That's kind of where I wanted to jump to next.
The funny thing about that is I don't even think that's so much political climate as it is just where our society's gone.
Yeah, but I think politics is that. The voting people are the people of Idiocracy, it seems.
Yes. Well, obviously the movie's very subtly racist, too.
A bit, yeah.
Did you notice that literally everybody in the future has a last name of Spanish descent? Everybody, despite what they look like. And it wasn't until the second time where I'm like, wait, ooh.
Right.
I mean, I get what he was saying, but it's, again.
Because Catholics have 17 kids and my Mexican people are a lot Catholic?
There you go.
Okay.
Yeah, basically. But it's very subtly racist. But it seemed like about a year ago it was popular to say, hey, that movie is more of a documentary than a regular movie. And now it's just kind of sad. Like that joke's played out because No, that you heard in the movie that he goes to see a movie called Ass.
Mm-hmm.
When they first screened the movie, it didn't have the voiceover, and it was called America, UHH, and people didn't get it, and the numbers were terrible from the test screening, and the studio kept asking him to cut and change and do all these things, and he said, "Listen, it's just that audience, and I'll prove it." He screened Ass at another test screening, and it came back with better numbers than Idiocracy. That's the reality that we live in right now.
Yep. That is horrific.
So if you'll excuse me, I'm going to drink a tall glass of this bleach.
Yes, please do. Certainly, we can't talk about political movies and how they influence politics if we don't talk about Oliver Stone.
Oh, man.
Almost all of his movies are in reference to that, whether it be JFK or whether it be Born on the 4th of July.
Can I say that W actually made me look at W in a whole different light?
I can see that. Josh Brolin was fantastic as W.
It humanized him at a time when he, I think, kind of needed it as a person. And it kind of made you feel a little sorry for him, whether or not it's true that he was just kind of a puppet for his dad's friends and interests.
Yep.
And he didn't want to be. I don't know. No one knows for sure. Maybe he just pulled one over, and he was.
Well, here's what I know. Donald Rumsfeld, still involved in politics. Dick Cheney, still involved in politics. George Bush, painting. Painting now.
Point. That's a very good point. Also, never mind. We'll do that for the crazy.
We're getting there. Yeah. So the people are anticipating. We are anticipating. But let's just hold off further.
Yeah.
We're almost there. So we're almost there. Let's talk. I'm going to go.
Traffic?
Well, yeah, we can get to traffic in a second. I want to complain about Zero Dark 30, not just for the fact that a woman directed it, but for the fact that whether it's good or bad or she intended to or didn't intend to, people see that movie and now think, oh, torture works because we get answers because of torture. And that always makes me uncomfortable.
Yeah, especially since our current president says that it does work and we're going to do it.
And we all know that is not the case.
Have you played Grand Theft Auto 5?
I've played them all.
Okay. The sequence in the 5th one where you have to torture that guy.
Didn't get that far into the game, but I hear you.
There's this, and you have to pick how you're going to do it. Do you want to electrocute him? Do you want to waterboard him?
Mm-hmm.
I've never felt as uncomfortable in a game as having to torture this poor guy who didn't know shit. And I get the point they were making, and I kind of wish it hadn't have been in the game.
Right.
But yeah, it's torture's never a good thing, and you're never going to get reliable information out of somebody.
No, that's so true. That is so true indeed. The Manchurian Candidate,
Which
think
one?
The original. It certainly
the one that
was.
gives away the twist at the beginning of the movie?
Yes, that one indeed. I think that was a good movie or the reflection of the times of the 60s and the fear that people had and the conspiracies that began to crop up.
Well, if we're going to talk about fears and conspiracies and things from the 60s, let's talk about a better movie.
Let's do it.
Dr. Strangelove.
Yes, indeed. Probably the greatest film ever made.
Hard to argue that. Against that, I should say.
Definitely people that flew over their heads.
Mm-hmm.
There will never be a better sequence than There's no fighting in the war room.
Or a better ending.
There you go. Well, the pie sequence, if they would have left that in, would have been fantastic.
The ending is gorgeous.
Oh, agreed.
It's
agreed.
Perfect.
I missed my pie fighting. It would have been perfect. Have you ever seen Battle of Algiers? That was a film from college that I remember watching that was fantabulous.
I have, and I don't remember. Wait, that has the sequence with the steps, right?
No, that's Potemkin.
Is it? I can't remember.
Yeah, that was Potemkin. No, Battle of Algiers is about the uprising, and I apologize, I don't remember the country right now, but it's such a response to what was going on in the country at the time. Like, I mean, it changed. It changed. The political system. I believe that people were ousted because of this. People really saw the violence and the horrificness of terrorism. There was a lot about terrorism, a lot about bombings, and the nature of how the innocent people get involved in that kind of stuff.
Is it better or worse than Too Fast, Too Furious?
It's about the same.
Okay.
I'm sorry, Steven Soderbergh. He was one of the speakers on the DVD. I lied. It was definitely better than Too Fast, Too Furious. But and it has fantastic music as well. I've stolen ideas for music.
I want to say that I've seen it, but I can't remember anything about it.
Go watch it again. A little film from a few years ago called Killing Them Softly. So much was a political film that it had clips of politics in the background while these gangsters were robbing people and doing their different things. Talking about the end of the Bush era, the start of the Obama era. It ends with "Give me my money," basically the last line of the film, and that was definitely a reflection of where we were as Americans then and still are now.
Well, the funny thing about that is many people, everyone remembers the bailout that Obama passed, but nobody remembers the bailout that happened in October before he was president, before the...
Oh, yeah, the Bush shoved through super quick.
That he went on television and had that news conference and said, if we don't do this, our country's not going to make it through the week.
Yep.
And then that money never got repaid.
Ugh.
Nobody remembers that. That was another $750 billion.
Hit me.
Okay, these lights are going nutty.
Yeah. We should have definitely done a Halloween episode today, guys. Hit me with one that we didn't discuss that people need to watch.
Oh, my God. I can't even think of it.
I'll start, and I'm going to hit you with two because I'm selfish.
Okay. No, go on.
Medium Cool. If nothing else,
Didn't
they literally got to shoot. Robert Forster is the main actor. They got to shoot during the 1968 Democratic Convention where all the riots and stuff were. So that's really cool that they're actually able to do that and to see that on film. And we didn't do documentaries. Obviously, those impact politics way more.
Yeah.
But the one I would say is The Thin Blue Line. It literally got somebody off death row.
Did you ever see the U.S. versus John Lennon?
I did not.
That one's fantastic and kind of they don't overtly say that Mark David Chapman might have been a Manchurian candidate,
right?
But they kind of allude to it.
Oh.
Because the same year you had, him shoot John Lennon. They found a copy of Catcher in the Rye.
Ugh.
No history of violence from the sky. John Hinckley Jr. found a copy of Catcher in the Rye.
Right.
No history of violence from him. Tried to kill Reagan. It's kind of weird.
Boy, we could really dive deep into that. Do you have a real movie though? Wag the Dog, In the Loop. Come on, anything Hunger Games?
We talked about Wag the Dog, and Wag the Dog almost doesn't seem. I don't know how they got some of those images, like with him hugging the intern and everything, before it became publicly known. That was weird.
Yeah,
that almost seems like a little bit of insider information, and they just rushed it out as fast as they could. That and her posing with the bag of chips instead of the cat.
Oh,
yeah. It's like technology can't do that. No, it can now.
Definitely can. And one that I think is underrated as far as political film, because in the end, the rich guy gets off. Of course he does. Wolf of Wall Street. I think that's such a political statement of
hell.
Of
he's even in the end of the movie.
Yeah, exactly. Ugh.
I love that movie.
It was a great movie. Sorry guys, we've come to the end again. The end of another episode. Perfect, probably. Imperfect, always. But we did it together, and I think we're better for it. We're in the dark. It's a little creepy in here. I think it worked for conspiracies. I think that there's a conspiracy to scare us with these flashing lights in here, but that's okay. We are men.
I'm just glad that you're seeing them too.
And we'll stick together.
I thought it was a side effect from my pain medication.
No, it's probably the roofies that I slipped you, and here in just a few minutes you'll be passed out.
What do you mean roof?
So let's get this done so I can get going.
All right.
So conspiracies, politics, Super Bowl movie trailers.
This is the most depressing episode yet.
It was not uplifting, but we promise you guys next time we'll probably be about as sad.
That's just because we're angry old men.
That's right, but we love you anyhow. Thanks for listening to us, and if you want to talk to us, I mean, you know who we are. So
Twitter.
So talk to us.
Oh
yeah, we did. We do have a Twitter page now. You can send us questions, comments, observations, pictures. No dick pics, please.
Sure, I'll take them.
Okay, send those to Matthew Thornberry. Send it to his work email address though, and he'd appreciate that. And anything else, sir?
Oh, do we need to tell him our Twitter?
Oh, I guess they would probably need to know that. Mattmen Pod.
Yep.
If you can't figure that out, then you're fired.
At Mattmen Pod.
That's
Two
what
T's,
all Twitters are.
MATTMENPOD.
Again, if you can't figure that out, then that's up to you. I don't need you as a fan that much.
Yeah, we do.
Okay, we do.
We do. We love each and every one of you the same.
all 17. They're listening to us in jail. That's where the 17 comes from.
That'd be great.
I know. Just get in on jail.
Wouldn't you like a jail following? At least that way, if you ever fucked up and you went to jail,
I'll be taken care of.
Yeah.
I like that. Until the next time.
See ya.